Hey guys, so this is gonna be opening 044, the 44th opening that I'd like to share with you is the Rose Birth opening. So it's basically an extension of the Rose opening just by two moves. But once you play those two moves, it generally goes into a very fixed line. I don't really see many people variate from that line that much after these two moves are played. So let's just run through the sequence. So it's the usual Rose opening sequence. You have that exchange to the top, and then you basically go down. And then from here, usually you have a few options to actually variate to play around with the moves on the right. And of course, to the bottom, you can choose to play e7, which is the Greenberg opening, which we'll cover in the next few episodes. And of course, today we want to talk about the Rose Birth opening, which goes to g3 being the best recommended move for black, and white going to c4. So as you can see, it's almost like black extending to the right and then white going to the left, because on the tail end of what's changed, which is this disc that black has just flipped to f4, this suddenly becomes a quiet move. And of course, just trying to make the move as close as possible to the group of this generally makes it more compact, because it is more likely that when black perhaps extend to e7, he would actually potentially poison the b4 move. So instead of actually choosing to play, let's say, b4 or b5, c4 is usually the more favored one because it's more compact to the center and to the group of discs, as opposed to playing something more dispersive that results in many pockets of spaces that black can actually exploit to play quiet moves. So that is perhaps the reason why c4 is the recommended move. And of course, this opening is similar to the Rose opening. The benefits includes it being centralized for black, easy to play generally, and a very specialized line for this Rose Birth opening. So of course the disadvantage is you get an early disadvantage, and you could potentially actually go into just the straight book for this opening and result in a straightforward loss. So if you really want to carry out this opening, you might want to have certain few variations. So a few variations would be to consider those options to the bottom right. But I think the typical sequence for the Rose Birth that follows is actually black going to b4, white goes to b3 being the common one, and then followed by black going to g5, white going into c3, black b5, and then of course the exchange to the left forming this shape. So if you look online, most players who actually play out the earlier sequence of this Rose Birth opening probably more often than not results in this final mid-game shape. And then of course they will then probably decide who's the winner with the next couple of mid-game exchanges and securing the sides. So I think for black, it's still fairly more of a very centralizing shape, while white has to actually grab a few edges and try to control the tempo. So the strength of black Rose opening in general is that you get to be the one who is probably playing a centralized shape, as opposed to white, who is forced to play towards the edge and just try to shut down your excesses as much as possible to force you to give up the corner. So if you're a person who really likes to play centralized, then Rose opening is probably good for you. And I would typically recommend it for advanced players and above. And if you are somebody who really likes to play edge play, then you're perfectly fine in playing the standard book counter against the Rose Birth opening. So on that note, end of this video, and yep, hopefully you find what you want.